Player versus environment, or PvE as we commonly say in the MMO genre, is usually thought of in terms of combat with AI-controlled creatures. In Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, the upcoming MMORPG by Visionary Realms, enduring the climates of Terminus will be an essential part of the PvE equation. The world of Terminus is a dangerous place, beyond its inhabitants. As a mechanic, this will be something that you can mitigate through various means of acclimation. But from a lore perspective, what are some of the places on Terminus with the most treacherous environments? Let's take an exploration of the lore that exists about the natural climates that have been shown, or at least described, in the world. To refresh our memories, there's 6 extreme climates planned to be in the world of Terminus at launch. They include frigid, scorching, toxic, anaerobic, pressure, and wind shear. And as Chris Joppa Perkins, creative director for the game, reminded us, these are not necessarily mutually exclusive. In 2017, he gave examples such as the crater of a volcano could be a scorching and toxic environment. The peak of a high mountain could be both frigid and a wind shear. Deep water could be pressure and anaerobic. In this video, we'll see some of these climates clearly described in the lore, while others are more or less implied. Of course, without having experienced these places ourselves, we won't really know what they're like until launch. And keep in mind, Pantheon's in pre-alpha development, so this can all change between now and then. But, having said that, let's consider the elements of Pantheon. Let's start on the continent of Rainfall, one of the 4 known continents of Terminus. We look first to the northeast corner, where a place so fraught with extreme climates that it's treacherous to even consider. Described in Tales from the Fire Part 1, Thaylen Greyborn recounts her knowledge of the area. We learn, to the humans of Thronefast, this place is called the Burning Basin, yet to her own people of Fairthale, it goes by the name of Vias Danad, Dead Storm Valley. At least 3 extreme climates are detailed in the text: scorching, wind shear, and toxic. The lore reveals there, the hot spray of the fissures mingles with the north-born winds, and from their union come the dead storms, tumultuous bursts of violent toxicity that roam the valley floor with uncanny awareness to mortal presence. Furthermore, fissures in the crust of the ground release howling, poisonous vapors that rise and fall in an odorous black symphony. It's said that the deeper one treads into the valley, the less of the real world they can recall. The mind of a common mortal will drift into a maze of dreams, deluded into believing a fissure of boiling gas is a long sought-after oasis. The bodies of these broken minds do not linger long upon the corrosive crust. Deadstorm Valley may just be a place only seen by those with not only the highest level of mystical protection, but also those with the most resilient minds. Not far from Deadstorm Valley, we find one of the refuges used by Terminus' denizens during the Deicide War. After the summit at Vesu, therefore did each pairing begin immediate preparations. The Burning Sanctum would be constructed in the petrified forest of Kay Kalar. As its name implies, a scorching environment most likely emanates from the magma moat flowing around the Burning Sanctum. Speaking of scorching environments, one can almost feel the sun punishing the foolish traveler who dares to brave the southern part of Rainfall. We're told the Kaja Sands are a sprawling desert region, located below the Broken Maw and ending in a rim of cliffs to the south. With more mesa bluffs than drifting dunes, Kaja's topography is captivating and harsh. Expect little relief from the withering heat as a few rains blow in from the west coast, but most of the storms stay just offshore, as if held away. On the eastern cliffs, however, there dwells a constant sandstorm, though it rages not by nature's force. The combination of searing heat and a supernatural wind would certainly be the end of most explorers to this region. Should you traverse the eastern cliffs and set sail in an effort to reach a more temperate land, prepare to be dismayed, as you'll find yourself in the clutches of the ravenous Scar, who inhabit the peninsula to the east of Kaja Sands. Their home, Scargol, is an acrid wasteland pocketed by fetid acid pools and barren rock stained by chemically unstable mineral compounds that leach upwards from the very bowels of Terminus. It is a vile, a hazardous place. Even if you can withstand the toxic elements of Scargol, it's unlikely you'll live to tell the tale once the Scar are done with you. If perchance you do escape the scar, you may head south in search of cooler temperatures. Here lies the Tenebrous Tundra, a glacial land home to the dwarves of Terminus. It's also the home of another of the sanctums, namely the Frozen Sanctum, buried in the storm drifts of the Tenebrous Tundra. We're given a detailed depiction of travel through this area by Narian Castigue in his third letter to Kaelin Greyborn, entitled A Night of Five Voices. He writes, "Frigid air whistled around me from the unseen below, and I regarded the clothing provisions very well. Narian was wise to consider his apparel as a means of acclimating to the perils of the Tenebrous Tundra." Recall, at Vesu, Khazus was asked, "But what natural defense shall the Frozen Sanctum have?" To which he famously replied, "Tenebrous, and Tenebrous alone." Better evidence of the frigid environment likely has not been seen as that of the depths of Amberfate. The torrent of icy winds and bitter cold was on full display in the April 2017 developer stream. From its depths, one needs only look up to see the rifts in the ceiling through which the Tenebrous Tundra's glaciers can be seen. According to the developers, expect climate acclimation to figure significantly, as well as some of the most challenging aspects of group play. We might assume a frigid climate is all that Amberfate offers, but deeper in Amberfate lies a forge and master who can craft items of rare ability due to the inherent temperature extremes found far below the frozen ground. It had been previously stated that Amberfate contains a small scorching sector, so if you can withstand the fire as well as the ice of Amberfate, you may be rewarded. Commonly forgotten, there is another frigid continent besides the Tenebrous Tundra. Note, for far to the north lies the frostbitten continent of Frojanacta, a harsh but striking realm of ice flows and shimmering glaciers. Frojanacta sends its storms across the Bethrel Strait and over the shoulders of the Rhone Mountains and into the Dead Storm Valley. Little else is known about this area at the time, although we've been told Frojanacta does not have a starting area or sanctum, but does host some interesting characters nonetheless. To the continent of Kingsreach we now turn our attention and consider the human city of Thronefast. A brief history lesson will exemplify how the climates of Terminus can change over time. While temperate now, it was not always the case for the humans. Recall, the following cursed frost winter of 459 saw the humans of Vast Demeth planted against the Rhone Mountains of Kingsreach, mercifully close to the elves of Fairthale. Within reach of Thronefast lies Halner's Cave, home of the Ratkin, amongst others. This underground cave will include systems such as perception, dispositions, and atmospheres will all come together to introduce the player to a new experience they haven't quite experienced in a dungeon. It isn't hard to imagine a cave deep in the earth, depriving explorers of oxygen, or its Ratkin inhabitants creating toxic traps, but we'll have to wait to see if this is the case. The halflings of Wild's End have also had to contend with nature's wrath. It's noted the Mad Moor is a sprawling region of Wild's End that is home to a wide array of treacherous creatures. Unwary adventurers can quickly find themselves overwhelmed amidst the diverse atmospheres of this grueling environment. Perhaps the Mad Moor presents multiple climates to acclimate to. There's also the Well Pond, which, the lore notes, this amazingly deep pool of water is not a halfling construct, but a naturally occurring phenomenon, with equally fantastic and dangerous things to discover in its depths. Perhaps the halflings have come up with a means of supplying enduring breath in a pressure environment in search of sunken treasures. If any race can, one would expect the halflings possess the connection to nature to acclimate to these situations. Toxic, and perhaps anaerobic, deep in Fairthale Forest we find the area where only the Torn Elves have found living palatable. Their home, the murk, is a mishap of nature, living and yet dead. This sunken expanse is as ancient as the old wood trees, but where they age in grace and majesty, the murk rots on as a devious and unforgiving twin. Within this twisted grotto, the stench of rot is so thick it's said to drift like a fog, choking off the light throughout the region. Is there a worse fate than to suffocate from the clouds of poisonous fumes? Consider this before setting foot in the murk. We end this exploration with a place not of the natural world as far as is known. The Isle of Infinite Storm is a place where a mystical magical degree of protection will be needed to even exist. The windshear climate most notably threatens to eliminate those crossing the remnant shards before they even attempt the confrontation with Sleepless. Should you cross, the climate increases its malevolence to include a violent lightning storm. Such are the power of these strikes that, when they make contact with these pools, it causes a violent splash that almost instantly freezes the liquid. While a direct lightning strike is almost certain to leave your corpse to wither away, It might even be said that this climate has the power to transform the land itself. Contending with these environmental conditions is going to challenge even the most seasoned MMO players amongst us. I think they also offer an amazing way of bringing the world to life through the accompanying lore. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the world through that lens. For a more practical explanation, be sure to check out Minus's most recent videos, which I'll link in the description. And be sure to tune in to Pantheon Plus U this Thursday, August 20th at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Pantheon Plus Twitch channel as we wrap up our month of talking about climates, acclimation, atmospheres, and artifacts in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. But as always, cheers, and thanks for watching.